Hello, and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly video recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Madeline Dubeck here with Matt Dietrich, and this week we want to delve into the minimum wage. We are now going to have an increase next summer, but only in the city of Chicago. And at the moment, we are not going to have an increase anywhere else.
Right.
Even though more than 2/3 of voters on November 4th said they supported such an increase. So how does that happen?
Well, it certainly didn't end up the way anyone intended it to back in May when the General Assembly, on a strictly party line vote, placed a ballot question on the November ballot asking, do you favor raising the Illinois minimum wage to $10 an hour by January 1st? Now, the reason that was placed on the ballot was it was supposed to drive the Democratic base to the polls,
Right.
and it was supposed to help in the re-election bid of Governor Pat Quinn, who made raising the minimum wage really the central
focal
theme.
point of his campaign.
Right.
Yes.
So it worked on one level, in that voters overwhelmingly said that we do want to see the minimum wage go up. But obviously, it did not get Pat Quinn reelected. He lost by 4 or 5 percentage points. And the turnout was actually down. So the thinking was that the legislature would come back for its fall veto session in November. It does 2 weeks, one in November, one in December. And with this mandate, would be able to pass then, craft its own $10 an hour minimum wage and get it through without much of a problem. Then you had the complication of Governor-elect Bruce Rauner asking, please don't pass any major legislation.
Right.
Then
As further complication,
we had the big complication.
the next election.
The next election, which is in February, involving
Mayor.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel in Chicago.
Right.
And he needs an issue that shows that he's not just a 1%er. What a perfect issue.
The minimum wage.
Right, and not just $10 an hour, $13 an hour.
eventually.
So
Over several
Right, so he
years.
very quickly, this week, called a special session of the Chicago City Council to consider a $13 an hour minimum wage on Monday. Then he had the special meeting on Tuesday in which it passed, thus nullifying any action that the state might take, the General Assembly might take at the state level. So what we end up with now is a dual minimum wage system, because Chicago is going to take it up to $13 an hour. The General Assembly was in the process of negotiating a compromise bill that would take it up eventually to $11 an hour.
Right. Which doesn't look like it's going to happen. Certainly it could come up again in the next General Assembly, which begins in January, but it's certainly probably not going to come up and pass before the mayoral primary in Chicago, because
Right.
that would hurt Rahm Emanuel and make him look weak.
There would be a direct rebuke to Rahm Emanuel for the state to come in and pass a law that nullifies the Chicago, and we should mention too that Chicago being a home rule district, there is some issue. Mark Brown in the Sun-Times had a column today wondering whether the state could now
Basically overrule what Rahm Emanuel
Right.
and the city council have
and
done.
say that the state has ultimate jurisdiction over establishing the minimum wage, therefore we're passing an $11 minimum wage and it's not going to get to 13 in Chicago. So a lot of things are up in the air, and you know, I think the bottom line in all this is that we saw the minimum wage being used as a political football.
It was about politics.
Right.
Much more than it was ever about helping people who need some help to make ends meet.
Right, and now we have, you know, on the ground, what you have are very concerned businesses along the border between, you know, Chicago city limit and the suburbs.
And many suburbs, right.
You have, you know, suburban businesses are concerned that they're going to lose workers who only want to work in Chicago. Chicago businesses are concerned because now our labor costs go up substantially compared to what right across the border the suburban employers have to pay. So, not an ideal situation.
Crazy quilt.
Mhm.
All right. That's it for this week's edition. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next edition of Only in Illinois.